Okay, let's get started. So today's topic is all about content design portfolios and how to really stand out, especially in today's market where the competition is really high and it's really fierce out there. So what are some things you can do and start do today by the end of this session so that you can stand out amongst the sea of applicants out there? And the number one thing is to make sure that your portfolio is interview ready. That's the best thing you can do. So, what does that mean? And how do you know if your portfolio is weak or strong? Do you feel confident applying with your portfolio? If you're rolling your eyes and being like, no, I worked with all these big companies and my portfolio is strong, well, some news for you. There's always room to improve. And there's always different ways to get your skills to shine and for you to walk into an interview and be confident when you're sitting across from that hiring manager. So that's what we're going to talk about today, mostly about the three moments that you must have in your interview, in your portfolio to succeed in an interview. So let's get started. All right. So, as I mentioned, why strong portfolios still don't build trust and how to make your decision making visible in your case studies. Oftentimes, when we think of case studies, we think intro, problem, solution, results, and we're good to go. But there's a lot more to that. And this session is especially important in today's hiring climate. So let's get going. And yours truly will be hosting today. My name is Roxana Shirazi. If you've been following me for a while, you probably already know I've been in content for 15 years. I've been doing content design for, wow, probably around over 5-6 years now. I've been in the field of UX for 6 years, 7 years, and I've worked and contracted with a lot of big names like Meta, Google, Citi. Right now I'm working for Ford. I've done a ton of contracts, worked with a lot of startups, small to medium business owners, and it's been quite a ride. And I've been in a ton of interview situations, and I want to help you succeed in these interviews. So let's see kind of what that looks like and what you need. I know you guys are dying to know. So let's go. All right, so first thing is first, this session is not about tips and tricks. So of course, I can give you the top 5 things you can do to make your portfolio stand out. Of course, we can do that, but that type of guidance is readily available anywhere and everywhere. And unfortunately, there's a lot of different people who have a lot of different opinions on which type of tips should be number one, which one isn't worth anything, depending on who you ask. So what we want to do is go to the foundational level. So we're going underneath your work to the layers that most people either clean up, edit out, or never capture at all. And that layer is exactly what hiring managers are looking for and scanning for. So recently, for the past few weeks, I've been reviewing a lot of content design portfolios, and the work wasn't bad. They were pretty impressive work going on that I've seen. So it wasn't necessarily like junior level or like messy with a lot of stuff all over the place and typos, none of that. So why aren't they getting interviews? Why are they coming to me? We'll talk about that a little bit because you can tell with these portfolios, a lot of effort went into it, a lot of time, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into these case studies. I saw clear writing, thoughtful flows, clean structure. But When you start asking the tough questions, then things start to falter or fall apart a little bit. And what kind of questions was I asking? I was looking for, why this direction? What changed along the way? What were you responding to? And so when I asked these questions, it seemed like everything went quiet. And so the reason for that is that the decisions behind the work were not visible. So I don't want to see what you decided. I want to see how you got to that decision. I want to know who influenced it, what constraints shaped it, and what tension had to be resolved. Because we know in the content design world, or anywhere where you're working on a product or on a project, there will be multiple people with multiple different priorities, and all of them have something to say. So what did you decide, and how did you decide it? That's what I want to see in your case study. And so now I'm looking at the work, and I can follow what happened. I can follow those series of events that led to the results, but I can't follow how they think, how you think. And that's what I'm looking for. And this is the part where portfolios quietly break trust. So it's not an automatic rejection each and every time you apply with that portfolio. So it's not loud. It's not a dramatic rejection. However, and you might feel this way when you're trying to explain your work, something feels incomplete. Because if the hiring manager or anybody else cannot see how a decision was made, then they probably can't trust you to make that decision again. And so this is the part that a lot of people don't really talk about in this space, in the kind of content design industry, the ones that are selling the courses. They don't really talk about or explain the fact that you don't get rejected because your work is bad or because your work is weak. It's that they couldn't see your decision-making clearly. And so all that you hear on the other end is, well, we just went with someone else. And then you're kind of stuck wondering, well, what happened? So what I want to do today in this session is to be very specific. And so I want us to look at where trust actually breaks, why the usual fixes of polishing, rewriting your case study and your entire portfolio just isn't working, and what makes your thinking land clearly and quickly so that your work doesn't just look nice. You don't just have a nice portfolio with a cute website. It's work that actually holds up in interviews. It holds up when you're being questioned. So most case studies show the final versions of things. They show the results. They show the final screen, the final copy, the final outcome. So everything looks like it went smoothly and everything looks resolved and everybody lives happily ever after. But that's not where decisions live. Decisions live before things are clean and organized, when multiple directions are still possible, when nothing is fully certain yet. And that part, it's almost always missing. I would say in nearly, and I'm not being dramatic, I would say in nearly 98.5% of portfolios that I review, they're missing that part. And this is especially in team environments. And as we all know, when you're working in a team and you're not just solo hunched over your laptop typing, you know when feedback comes in, you know when priorities shift, you know when constraints show up, sometimes out of nowhere. And that layer of decision-making, of visible decision-making, gets flattened or removed completely. So it looks like you made all of the decisions by your lonesome on your own, and there was no one around to tell you, well, I don't think so. So we have something that's very polished. We have a very clear line from beginning to end, but that line is disconnected in parts. When you really, really look at it, when you really start drilling down and asking those questions, this disconnect comes up. So I can see the outcome, but for a hiring manager, the hiring manager cannot evaluate the thinking behind the outcome, which is gold, which is really what they're looking for. And so it's natural. And I myself, I do this too. I try to fix it. And so I think, okay, maybe if I just explain myself more, maybe if I just add another slide, another section to my case study, then my portfolio will finally be able to stand on its own and get me that job, get me that nice high paying job. And so, yeah, what most of us do, we add more detail, more context, more paragraphs. I really, really hate to say this, but it actually makes the problem worse because now you're explaining a finished decision instead of showing how you arrived at that decision. So the more you explain, the more it reads like justification, not decision making, because the hiring manager, the person on the other end, how would they know? How would they know? What they're looking for is not you reverse engineering your decision on the spot. They want to know the chain of events that occurred for you to come to that decision. That's the key right there. So the issue is not how much context, how much words you have on your portfolio. It's that the thinking is already gone, evaporated by the time you're trying to describe it. And that's why the strong work feels, I use the word thin, feels kind of shaky, thin, weak, and you're not that confident presenting it. Not because the work itself is simple or not complex or sloppy, not at all. It's because the part that made it strong, the decision making, the logic, is invisible. So, what actually makes a decision feel real? So there are 3 moments that really matter, and we'll talk about it. And if those 3 moments are not in your case study, are not in your portfolio, then your work will always feel like execution. Like, okay, I decided this and I did this, and bada bing, bada boom, we have a product. And so that type of case study doesn't really hold up well in interviews. No matter how beautiful, no matter how organized and structured it is. So, what are the 3 moments? Moment number 1, when more than one direction was possible and you had to choose. So, this is a great introduction to how you think. Show your judgment. Show what you considered. What were the multiple paths that you were looking at? What you ruled out? What made you say, okay, this path is not the right way. It's not the way to satisfy, to meet our user and business needs. And tell me what you prioritized. What was important for you and how did you stack your priorities? I want to know those things. So that's moment number 1 that you should include. All right, so moment number 2, when something changed, when feedback came in, when a constraint appeared, when a stakeholder pushed back. So this is where your adaptability shows, not just what you did, but how you adapted, how you adjusted. Because we all know, and a lot of us have that experience of, well, we had an idea. And then engineering came out and was like, you can't write that. That's way too long. That's way too many characters. Back to the drawing board. Tell me about that. We've all had experiences where we've written something and legal is like, absolutely not. This is what you need to include, a giant paragraph, for example. So how do you deal with that? What did you do? That's what I want to know. All right, moment number 3, why the final decision held even under pressure. So this is where that trust on the hiring side comes in, because then they can see that your decision wasn't made just willy-nilly. This is just my vibe for today. It was tested. And this is one of the most important things that you can also communicate and that you should have in your content design portfolio is research, is feedback. Give me data, give me numbers. How did your decisions stand firm in the face of feedback, in the face of pushback? I want to know how did you do all that? How did your decision stand strong in the face of constraints, feedback, of hearing no, of hearing, well, make it pop, that kind of thing. And while all this is going on, I still need to see your role clearly. Don't make yourself to be the hero that you're not. So, a lot of also that I see in portfolios is that some people just edit out their entire team. Like they were the only ones and that mattered, for example. So yes, I made this decision. I took it over from like 0 to 1. Okay, that's inflating a little bit. Don't inflate, don't minimize your role either. And just be accurate. What did you do? And what was your role? What came from you? What changed because of others? And how you navigated that. So that's going back to those 3 moments. What came from you? What were your decisions? What changed because of others? That feedback, that constraint, and what did you do? Those 3 things, if you take nothing from this workshop, those 3 things are key to have in your portfolio in order to be successful. And in order to explain your work with confidence and with heft and, be able to answer those questions and not be blindsided by the why this direction, why did you choose this type of questions and interviews that they will throw out to you. So without these moments, without those 3 moments, your work reads like output, like just this is what I did and this is what came out of it. So it's really masking the fact that you did real complex thinking. And I think that's a disservice to you and your intellect as well, because I have no doubt that everybody on this call is capable and smart and brilliant in their own way. So the question in these interviews become, how do you communicate that clearly? How do you demonstrate your brilliance? Because you truly are brilliant. How do you demonstrate that and communicate that to the person who's hiring you? Output alone. So just being the, yes man, it won't get you hired, especially at the more senior level or anything above where you're currently at or your role. So now, all of this to ask culminates in one main question. And I get this question a lot. So how do you show all of this, all of your thinking, all of that messy middle? How do you show that in your case study without it turning into like a novel, basically, like a giant manuscript, into a wall of text? Because as we know, people don't sit nowadays, and especially hiring managers, they're looking to just skim over your stuff. If there's a wall of text, they're going to roll their eyes and move on. So how do we do all this without that giant wall of text in front of the interviewer? So the key is you don't explain every single tiny detail. You surface the right moments. Stay with me. You make those decisions visible instead of trying to describe them after the fact. So what does that mean? English lady. What that means is clear turning points, visible trade-off, specific reasoning, being very crisp and clear, short, intentional, grounded. And by grounded, of course, in reality, what you actually did and what you're actually responsible for, accurate, but also grounded in the needs of your user, which is the hiring manager, who has very little time and a stack of portfolios to look through. So if you're looking at your work and moaning and being like, where do I even start? Start with these 3 questions. Can someone see what else was possible in your work? Can they see what changed that direction? And can they see why the final decision held? So those are the 3 questions before you even rewrite or even think about rewriting anything. These 3 will be your guiding, kind of making sure that you have like this mini checklist of these 3 questions and that you're answering yes to all 3 of them. Then you have a nice, hefty, hiring manager approved case study. If you are not able to answer yes to those 3, and if you do not have those 3 moments, then your entire case study reads like a conclusion. Okay, yeah, this is what happened at the end of the day. Good night. Not a decision. And remember, the key differentiating factor is making your decision-making visible in your portfolio. I want to see how you think. Give me a glimpse into your beautiful mind. I want to see all of that in your portfolio, in your case studies. And unfortunately, this is where most people just get stuck because they're trying to reverse engineer or reconstruct their thinking after everything is already finished and the product is already shipped. So by then, unfortunately, the thinking is poof, gone. It's flattened, or it's simplified, or just cleaned up. So if you want your thinking to be visible, it is so important to jot it down. Write it and capture it while it's happening. And that's exactly what we do in the case study studio. So this is a way to work with me. So the case study studio is a 3-week live program. It's very, very different from what's out there. And before I really talk about this case study studio, I want to give you a little bit of a backstory of me. So I've been in content for over 15 years now. I've been in content for a hot minute. And I was really interested in UX design. And I remember taking the UX design course from Google. And I absolutely loved the mental models, user psychology, UX research. I loved all that stuff. And so I finished my final project, had my prototypes and everything ready for my final exam. And I looked at all the screens that I designed and I created. And I was like, you know what, Roxana, you should never do this again. My designs were horrible. So I was like, dang, I really, really love the world of UX, but I'm not great at the visual part of it. So I looked into UX writing. And so I thought, perfect. It's my love of UX combined with my love for words combined. and I'll be a UX writer. And so I got a certification from one of those big, UX writing courses. And I think at that time it was like $1,200. And so I was like, okay, great. Let's do this. So I went through the whole thing and I was overwhelmed. There was a lot of text. It was a lot of theory. And then after I finished that part and I had like some sort of final exam, this is, like I said, a few years ago, and I passed the final exam, they're like, okay, here's Figma and here are some screens you need to rewrite. Okay, fine. So I rewrote the screens and I finished my final project and they're like, okay, here's your certificate. Good luck. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, I got this shiny new certificate. What do I do now? Oh yeah, start applying. So I started applying and crickets. I think I got one interview. And I'm like, I spent $1,200 and I can't get like a second interview. What is going on? And so I'm not a quitter. I'm a very stubborn person. And so I was like, I'm not letting this UX thing go. Like, I got a death grip on it. So then I enrolled in a UX career boot camp, and that was $5,000. But I was like, I really want to succeed in this. I really love this field. I want to get into it. Let me do it. And so after I did that, I came up with a case study. And I spent a lot of time on the slides, and all of the career coaches, they were like, wow, your slides are mind blowing. They're beautiful. Your slides are amazing. So I took my slides over to a Facebook page for, I think it was UX writers or just people in UX at the time. And I was like, hey guys, I made a portfolio. Tell me what you think. And they were like, this is the worst portfolio I've ever seen. So I'm stuck. I was stuck. What to do? Why is nothing working for me? Like I've spent, if you're counting, I spent over like $6,200. And I still couldn't get one job, even though I was applying. I've been, customizing my resume, customizing my portfolio, and nothing worked. Nothing worked. So I decided just to freelance, become a contractor, do my own thing, try out, what it's like to actually do UX writing work. And so I got a client. I took on a client. They were a startup. And, all that was said and done, I calculated. And I was charging them, it came out to like $1 an hour. but I was able to explain and show how I made the decisions I made within a product team. And the same thing with pushback, with feedback, with constraints, with research, all the things that I created. So I took a new approach to portfolios, and I made a much more condensed, much more straightforward with a splash of my personality just to make it visually interesting. And I was really, really brave. I applied for a senior content designer role at BP. And I went through 2 panel interviews and I passed. So my first gig in UX was as a senior content designer for BP. And so I was very angry. I was like, why does everybody have to go through this? Is everybody paying $6,000, $5,000 to get started in UX and then have a portfolio that doesn't lead them to anything? What is that? That made me really, really upset. So that's where this came from. The case study studio came from. It's a combination of learning content design through hands-on exercises in a small group, which mimics a product environment. So when I took that UX writing course, it was just me learning passively, reading, okay, module finished, module 1 finished, now module 2, 3, okay, finished. But I wasn't doing hands-on stuff, and there was no one there to guide me. The screens that I rewrote, one of their coaches was like, okay, pass, fail. That was it. There was not really any feedback that I could really work on. And it wasn't to get a job. It was just to learn content design. So I'm like, why not both? Why can't we just do both? So this is where that comes from, that long, long story. All right. So as I mentioned, this is not theory. This is not a theory course. You're not passively watching from the sidelines. What I want you to do in this course is to build, decide, adjust in real time while simultaneously documenting your decision making and communicating that, learning how to communicate, learning how to frame your decisions in a way that's interesting and valuable to the hiring manager. So how do you do that? You'll be working on a focused product. So in this cohort, we'll be working on a payments app. So it'll be a fintech product. We're just doing one flow, which would be the checkout flow. And I will provide real constraints. You will make real decisions, and there's nothing to hide behind. We're all there. We're all there, and we're all not hiding. I wanted to say naked, but that would be really weird. There's no nudity involved, just so you know. And so by the end, you don't have something that just looks good. You have something that holds up in the interview. You have something that you can explain with confidence. So the case study studio, it's a 3-week working room where your thinking gets captured while it's still happening. So let's drill down a little bit more. In week 1, we'll do research, we'll do voice, and we'll have a intimate understanding, a very detailed understanding of the system so that it's clear and it holds. Then we move on to week 2. Well, you'll write out the full experience, including edge cases, while, again, document everything we're documenting, everything. And by week 3, we'll be turning that into a case study that shows what changed, why, and how your decisions held under pressure. That way, when you're talking about your case study in an interview, no problem. It's right there. You're not reverse engineering on the spot. All right, so a bit more detail about the course itself. So in week 1, systems before screens. Before a single word is written, we strip everything back and build the foundation. Talking research, voice, terminology, and flow, so your work stops feeling like guesswork, like, yeah, I guess that felt right. And it starts feeling intentional. And this is where we fix those invisible cracks before they show up in your portfolio. And week 2, you'll be writing under pressure. So you will write real product screens while documenting every decision, so your thinking doesn't disappear in the final version or in an interview. Now, most people show the final screen, but you'll be special. You'll stand out. You'll show what changed, what you considered, and why your final call, your final decision held. And finally, in week 3, you'll be turning your work into proof. So we take everything that you built and shape it into a case study that reads like decision making, not decoration, not vibes. So if your case study, and I will say this until the day with my final breath, if your case study can't explain itself under pressure, it doesn't get trusted. And so in the case study studio, we fix that before you ever hit apply. So I really, really want to state here, you're not learning just theory. You're building a full fintech case study from scratch. And it will be a high trust, send money flow where every word actually matters. And it's important to note, and I'll say this again and again, most portfolios, they're not missing skills. They're very smart, capable people who did very good complex work. However, they are missing visible decision making. And that's exactly what we build into yours. So if your portfolio just shows the outcome, the final screen, the final result, but not the reasoning behind it, that's the gap. That's what makes your portfolio feel incomplete. And then once you see it, it's really hard to not see it. And so if you're ready to fix it at the source, I can show you how. So what we're going to do and what's included in the case study studio is 3 weeks of live training, group collaboration, because remember, you're working in very small groups. So they will keep you accountable, and so will I. And you'll receive my step-by-step guidance every week. Every week, we're going to be meeting as a group, and you'll have Q&A back and forth with me and my guidance. I'll give you a case study survival tip. You'll get the interview confidence workshop. I'll give you a storytelling guide to make sure that you're keeping the person that's interviewing you engaged. And finally, we have a private Facebook group, so anybody and everybody can post questions, chat, and connect. Now, typically, this is priced at $1,497, but because we're BFFs, because you're you, and because this is the first cohort of the case study studio, you can start for $299. So 3 payments of $299, or if you'd like to do the pay in full amount of $758.50, that's also an option as well. Those who do pay in full get 2 extra one-on-one sessions with me. So begin your portfolio journey, because the more you think about what should I do with my portfolio? What's missing in my portfolio? What happened to this interview that I didn't receive the job? I didn't get that call back. The more you keep thinking about that, the more that chips away at your confidence, and the more you're wasting time. If you're able to show your decision-making in your case study, and you're able to explain it with confidence in your interviews, the more likely it is that you'll succeed in getting a job. Now, that's either at a company or as a freelancer looking for contracts, because I'm also a freelancer as well. I have, the Content Design Co. is also my LLC. It's my business. I get clients from there as well. And so they also want to see your work. They also want to see what type of person you are and what you have to offer. And so this would really help you in that. And so, yeah, this is, I think, a great way for us in the content design community to really band together and be able to connect and support each other in a structured, real product environment. All right, so now, let me know if anybody has any questions. We can do a Q&A session. All right, you can go ahead and add your questions to the chat, and I'll answer them. All right, let me go ahead and give you the link. All right, so the offer is live. You can go ahead, you can sign up today. I will say though, I want to keep this cohort intentionally small because I am so hands-on. It can only work if I am able to give quality instruction and guidance to a limited number of participants in our group. Okay, so the first question is, that's a really good question. Do I need to have UX experience? You don't. You don't need to have any content design or UX experience. What you need to have is a passion to learn, and you have to be able to communicate. And this is a very important skill to develop. And the case study studio will provide that for you because you will be working in groups. Unlike other courses where you're working solo, this is a great way for you to work with others, to talk about working with others, and to have a case study that focuses on your role in a team. So you don't necessarily need to have UX or content design experience to be part of the case study studio, because we will teach you content design, but in a hands-on, interactive way. All right, next question. Do you guarantee job placement? That's a really, really good question. It's really hard in this economy, in this job market as it is right now, especially I'm talking about the US, to be able to guarantee income. I don't think that's realistic, and I would be very, very cautious about any other company or organization that would promise you a certain amount that you would make this much. I intentionally do not put that. I intentionally do not say like, oh, take my course and that way you can make $100,000. That's not realistic. And anybody who says otherwise is maybe not being genuine. However, this is a great way to stand out. As I mentioned at the very beginning, you can stand out very easily because not a lot of portfolios have the visible decision making. A lot of them don't have the team element, the team interaction. They don't really showcase the messy middle. And that's what I really want to do here, is not showing it in when I say messy middle, it's not in the way of text, paragraph after paragraph, lines and lines and lines of text, going through the drama of what happened. Absolutely not. This is communicating in a way that's valuable to hiring managers, and it's what they're seeking, what they want to see. Because they not only want to see, of course, they want to see your thinking and understand how you make decisions, but they also want to see the type of person you are, because you guys are going to be coworkers. You guys are going to be working with each other. So they want to see how you deal with pressure. They want to see how you deal with constraints and how you deal with being told no, or this is not enough, or this is too much. And so we want to incorporate that thoughtfully into your case study. All right. Next question. All right, is 3 weeks too short, and will I have lifetime access? That's a really, really good point, because a lot of these other courses do offer lifetime access. That is true. Your access will be cut off after week 4. And why is that? Why do you do that? Why would I spend this much money for only 3 weeks? The whole point of this course and why I created it and structured it to be like this is to apply that real life pressure that you will face when you work in a real product team. That's the whole point of this. So if you have a lifetime access, how will you communicate that in your portfolio. Like they might ask you, oh, you worked on this project for 6 weeks. Why 6 weeks? And then how will you explain that? And then what if they say, well, we're a very fast-paced environment. If it takes you 6 weeks to do these 3 screens, I don't know if you would fit here, basically. I don't think you would be like a culture fit. So you might come up with that as well. So this 3 weeks and not having that lifetime access will push you, will push you to, number one, get it done. And also, number two, to be able to demonstrate that, yes, I can work in a high pressure environment, because 3 weeks is pretty high pressure. I can work in a very, high pressure environment, and I can also make decisions really, really fast based on solid data, based on research, based on constraints. That's the whole point of this, is to model that real product team environment. And very rarely do you have a product that would take months and months and months to complete. And so I don't recommend that you have a portfolio that said, oh yeah, I did this like onboarding flow and it took me like 5 months. I don't really recommend that. And they do want to know. They might not ask you directly, but they will want to know, how long did it take you to create this set of screen for like this flow? They will want to know that. So this gets ahead of them. Okay, next question. That's so cute. I'm shy. Is this for me? I'm also an introvert. I know it doesn't really show sometimes. It's just I get really, really excited when I talk about content design portfolios. But the whole point of this is to show that you can and you are able and you do have experience working with a team. Now, you might think, well, what if we don't get along? Welcome to the real world. Welcome to the real world of product. You're not going to get along with everyone. Not everybody is going to agree with you all the time, right? So document that. That's part of this process. That's part of what I've been talking about this entire time in this workshop. It's talking about pushback, feedback. Hiring managers, they want to know how you handle negative feedback. They want to know how you handle conflict within your team. And what you want to do is demonstrate to them that no matter what, I come with the data. I don't come with the drama. I come with the data. And that's how I deal with conflict. And here's evidence of it in my portfolio. So that's really key here. That's what we want to do. And that's why this is structured to be in group environments. I mentioned also that I had worked with I had taken a UX writing course, and that I was by myself, basically. And that was a huge disadvantage, to sit and rewrite screens by myself. That's not real. That rarely happens, unless I've had clients though that have been like, here, write these screens by yourself. That will happen, but you'll also get pushback as well. So yeah, sure, you can write screens by yourself, but then if you get asked the question about how you made the decision and who influenced your decision, if you're working by yourself, writing screens by yourself, you won't be able to answer that question very well. And that's also another thing that I want to harp is, of course, after this workshop, you can go back and you can rewrite your portfolio, your case studies, to really show your thinking and the constraints and the feedback and all that. You can absolutely do that. However, it might come off as you justifying your decision instead of showing how you made that decision. So I want you to be really, really careful about that, because one huge thing, and that's really not talked about that much in the hiring process, is trust. The hiring manager, of course, they have to like you. Of course, they have to, make sure that you have a certain skill set and that you're nice to work with. Of course. However, they also need to trust that you can make that same decision again. The decision you made that made the product and the results. You had great results. Great. Can I trust you to make those series of decisions again on my team to make that positive results? That's what they're looking for as well. They need to trust you. So not only do they need to see how you think, but they need to trust that you are making that you're able to make those same decisions again in a different environment. And so having that process and being able to speak about it, the ups and downs as well, I think that is what will build that trust in your interview. Okay, I think that's it. Does anybody else have any questions? Don't be shy. All right. Okay. So if you have any more questions after this, don't hesitate to email me. I'm always, always, always happy to hear from you guys. My email is hello@thecontentdesign.co. And so I'll stay on the call for another 10 minutes in case another question pops up, or we could just chit chat. If not, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for coming. I had so much fun. Of course, my obsession with portfolios is probably really obvious at this point. So thank you. Thank you so much for coming. And thank you so much for listening to my presentation. Go through the sales page. And if you have any questions, remember, I am cutting it off at 10 people. There will only be 10 participants in this cohort. I am keeping it very small. And you might be wondering, okay, well, so when is the next cohort opening? That's a really good question. It probably won't be for another few months because as a content designer, I need data and I design using data. And so the data that I get from you will help me shape the next cohort as well. And so these prices that you see, the discounted price of $299 is just for this cohort. It's just for you guys. The next cohort, I'll have a higher price point, and it'll probably be a bigger cohort. And I'm not sure when the next cohort is going to be, probably in a few months. And also I work full-time. I'm a working content designer. I don't just sell courses. I don't rely on income from courses. I'm a practicing content designer. And so, yeah, that's why the price point is what it is, because I don't need it to pay my rent. And, I want to make sure that it's accessible to everybody. And, nobody's paying $6,000 again, like I did, to not really get a job or have to work for $1 an hour like I did in order to break into the industry. So yeah, thanks again, everyone, for coming. It was great chatting with you guys. You guys give me so much energy. So it was great. It was great talking. And yeah, I will see y'all soon. Oh, one more thing. Yeah, I see a question just came in. Do I have to purchase today? No. No, cart opens today. So cart opens today, but it's not a public offer. Just people who are on my list, only people who signed up for this webinar will be getting the link. It's not necessarily public. It's just for my followers. So there's no ads out there. It's not on my website. I should probably put it on there, but it's not. It's through here, and I will also be emailing the offer as well for those who couldn't attend live. But yeah, this workshop is really to help you and to give you an idea of how I can help you and to give you a way to work with me as well. So yeah, this course, the card is open, doors are open. However, they will close. The doors will close after 10 people sign up, or before 7 days. So by next week, the doors will be closed, or if 10 people sign up, whichever one comes first. All right. So again, don't be shy. Email me any questions. I'm always here. Always happy to hear from you guys. So great seeing you guys and seeing all your portfolio and all your work, all your questions. Yeah, at your service. All right, everyone. We'll chat later. Bye.